Welcome to the fourth episode of Vital Questions. I'm your host, Che Guerrero, with
La
my co-host. Wait, why'd you laugh at my intro?
Because of your pause.
Yeah, I forgot my name. I had to look over. I was like, I am Che. Because it says it back there, Che. That's me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How are you feeling today?
Good. Wait, so I have a song for you.
Okay, what's the song?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Oh,
I have to hit the runs. It is my birthday. We are
Cute.
recording this on April 3rd. If you're listening to this when it drops, you're probably listening to this the next day. Venmo at Che Guerrero, Cash App at Che Guerrero, $ Che Guerrero.
Is that really what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's really what it is. If
you would. You'd be like, I'm joking, but just in case.
Listen, I don't make money like these big TikTokers. Like, you see those conversations online of TikTokers who make like $700,000 a year. They're white. Okay. We as people of color, we don't bring in that kind of money. So any little donation.
There are content creators that bring in money.
You know, this is a big conversation on TikTok of how people of color do not bring in the same kind of.
Oh no, yes, agreed.
You know,
for sure. But I'm just saying
brand deals and stuff like that.
But you're making it sound like no one brings in that kind of money.
It is much hard. Look, okay. From the videos I've seen, the consensus is that it is pretty difficult for people of color to make $700,000 or $1 million a year through brand deals. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I know one content creator who's Latino who does millions a year, but that is not through direct brand deals. That is through viewership and him selling products that he created online.
But they have to hustle harder.
Exactly, they have to hustle harder. You know what I mean? So that's why.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, and that's just kind of across the board, regardless of industry at that point. But that's a bigger conversation of like.
And then, I'll bring in my own experience. Then when you're a content creator who talks politics the way I do, and not even like, I think right-wing politics for people of color actually pays better. I think those people who work for like PragerU, those Black and Latinos who work for PragerU or who work for like Breitbart, they make money because they're selling out their souls. If you are a person of color who actually speaks out against, atrocities, Free Palestine, and things like that, you are not going to get those brand deals because that phrase right there just cost you your growth potential to go extremely low.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate part of having principles.
Listen, I got principles, which is why I'll never sell out. But if you want to send me a few dollars, remember, Venmo and Cash App at Che Guerrero so I can stay independent. And let's get into today's news.
Independent.
Independent.
We got to figure out a way to do those because I've been wanting to like.
Independent. So yeah, let's get into
what everyone's talking about.
Everyone's talking about. You know what?
Rightfully so.
I think that it's really rare that you can start off the news or anything these days with something good. And I know before I get into it, a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions about this person and his voting record and the record, with him being involved with APAC. And it's all
valid.
It's all valid criticism, of course, of course. I didn't see anything in the 25 hours that he spoke about Palestine.
Right.
And that does come with some criticism that he could do more for this. But I just am sort of holding on to the hope that was Cory Booker, on the Senate floor talking for 25 hours.
Right.
And what it meant for him to do that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the important part, right? Where we kind of had this discussion of how diehard the right-wing side of politics tend to be, right? And they don't necessarily question their leadership as much as the left side does. Yes. They don't necessarily criticize their leadership as much. And I know that there is some people that think that may be a good thing, right? Because, they have solidarity and that's why they're able to get things done. And it's just like, well, no, to care about what happens to your country, to care about your country, and in my opinion, to be patriotic is to feel like you can always do better, right? Is to acknowledge that there are issues in play in the same way that like in any relationship, right? If you care about that relationship and if you care about the longevity of it, you address the issues. So that's what the left side of politics tends to do.
Yeah.
In a great way. That's how we can continue to progress. That's how we make things better. That's how you actually move towards a better future.
Right.
But that is the downside of that, is that when great things like this happen, like what Senator Booker did yesterday, well, as of
last night.
Well, technically 25 hours, right? Yeah. That what Senator Booker did for 25 hours, and the significance of it, to our point, right? Like, we don't necessarily want it to be outweighed by the many valid other issues that maybe exist with his positions and the things that he has said. And in the past, the fact that Palestine wasn't mentioned in this, long speech, where there was ample opportunity to, for sure.
Yeah.
Those are all valid in the same way that the significance of this is valid.
Yeah.
Right. So we just want to lay that out, that both things are very valid. And for the sake of this conversation, we're focusing on the importance and the benefit that is the speech and what he did.
And that's the thing too. I am okay with the criticism that Cory Booker's getting, because you're right. The thing about the right, and the reason why they're able to unite, is because hate unites people very easily. It's much easier to create an enemy and get everyone to come behind the leader,
right?
And any kind of dissent from that ideology is attacked, right? On our, I say our end, on the left, liberals, Democrats, or whatever, we don't have that one party system mentality, kind of like that. We don't have this.
We have independent thought.
We have independent
for as much
thought.
As they want to call us sheep.
And we criticize our leaders.
Right.
And because we're criticizing Cory Booker, does not mean that we can't also, give him his roses when he deserves it. But
we acknowledge
acknowledge his, what he did was historic in so many ways, and we'll get to that in a second. But we also, can't lose sight of the fact that we need to push people like Cory Booker to do better.
Right.
To step away from this corporate money and really come out here and work for the people the way, he showed yesterday he could do. And that is doable.
Right.
With people like Cory Booker, where you can, criticize him and get him to do better. And I think he is able to move more towards the kind of policies that we need, and putting pressure on these politicians to show them, hey, we will vote for you if you actually deliver on the things that you promised.
Right. I mean, I think it's safe to say he's significantly more reasonable than what we have at play right now.
We need to be realistic. And also, this is where I think I mentioned this to you before. Being a two-party system is very difficult, especially for us who have different ideologies of how we think, we should be progressing forward, not backwards. The right wing is all backwards, so it's easy for them to get in line.
Right.
We're trying to move forward, and that's much tougher with different ideas on how we can do it.
Right.
So that's where I think on our end, but it'll hurt us because we really wouldn't win elections like that. There should be more parties. I know, for example, in Philadelphia, they have, I believe it's the Working Families Party or the Working People's Party. They have another party that is also working with, the mayor, the Democrats and Republicans in City Hall.
Yeah.
To create legislation that's a lot more favorable for families, and they're doing just fine as a party, in Philly.
Right.
So it should be that we need to have more parties, because right now it is very difficult for our side to fully get behind a candidate. We might agree with them with 80%,
right?
But their treatment of the Palestinian people or the people in the Congo, or their war hawkish ways just don't align with what we want to see, in the United States.
And I mean, and not to, because we do have to go on to our other topics, but not to belabor the point, that is something that we talked about, unfortunately happened during this election, right? Where I kept saying, I fully understand why people are upset with the then current administration, the lack of action in the Palestine crisis that's happening, the critiques that are all, again, very valid.
Yeah.
But what I kept saying is that, who do you think you have a better shot at potentially changing things with? And I was like, that's my thing. I fully understand people having principles and values and caring about human life and civil rights and human rights, and totally understand that, and am of the same boat. But I'm also logical.
Yeah.
Right. And for as much as I would love to be able to flip a switch and create the political party that fits all of the different things, that's just not realistic. right? So I think that in order to get certain policies across, in order to move towards certain changes, you have to work within the current structure that you're in if there are time constraints, like an election, right? Like, yes, let's move towards a bigger party system. Let's move towards actually helping people that are being oppressed. Let's move towards a lot of progress if there's time for that. And there is, just generally speaking, right? So that's why the fight is worth it. But in terms of the short-term decisions that need to be made, like an election, where people need to decide on a candidate or then not vote.
Yeah.
And then that basically counts as a vote towards the other candidate. Like, that's what people need to start thinking about, right? Like, there is a level of strategy that comes along with trying to get policies across.
Yeah. I mean, the process was going so slow for people of color.
Totally.
All the way Biden was moving towards the right with immigration, right. That. And I'm not saying that, the other side is any kind of better. The problem is that still with Democrats, there's still so much that they're unwilling to do for the people that are voting for them.
Right.
And that's what breaks our heart or gets us disillusioned.
Yeah.
But like Nelson Mandela said in the book, Long Walk to Freedom, which really stuck with me, is that there is a way to try and work within the system as long as the system is workable.
Yeah.
Under Biden, it was workable. That's why I kept telling people, look, we're not going to get everything we want with Kamala Harris winning, but Kamala Harris is workable.
Right.
She is a workable government.
She actually works within the structure of a government. That's to clarify.
Like right now,
that's what that means.
Exactly. And right now we have millions of people marching every day.
Yeah.
On April 5th, they're planning a march.
Yeah.
In Washington.
Yeah.
There's
marches all over, all over the country.
All over the country. There's people out there, fighting the Trump administration because of how evil he is. And this should be happening. But here's the problem. Trump ain't gonna listen to these protesters. He hates them. He wants to jail them. He wants to put them away for life for opposing him. If we had Kamala in office and we would have been out there in these numbers, guess what? Kamala would have been scared.
Right.
Kamala would have been like, you know what? There is 1 million people getting ready to march on Washington over immigration reform. There are hundreds of thousands of protests at the Capitol against what's happening in Gaza.
And the difference is you wouldn't be going to these marches potentially worried about getting deported.
Exactly.
Irrespective of your status, to clarify.
Exactly. The problem always is that when Democrats are in office, people believe that Democrats are just automatically going to do quote unquote the right thing, and we don't put the pressure on them the way we do when Republicans are in office.
Right. And then get dismayed when they don't act in the way that we're expecting them to do without pressure. Like, that's just not. And again, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah,
something?
Squeaky wheel. Yeah.
And it's funny. I've been a squeaker for other people. For me to squeak for myself, I'm usually not a squeaky wheel.
Squeak, baby, squeak.
But it's important, right? Like, it's important to squeak because that's the only way that you get attention paid to the issue.
And if there's an election in 2028 and we get a Democratic president, we need to keep the pressure that we're keeping on now.
Right.
There should have been town halls,
right,
where people yelling at Democrats, why didn't we pass, why don't we pass the Build Back Better plan that was supposed to give? Why don't we keep the child tax credit on?
Right.
Why don't we pass immigration reform and have actual comprehensive legislation that allows people to come into this country?
Right.
Why don't we stop with our military interventions across the globe that keep forcing people to have to come here? Why don't we make rich people pay their fair share? Where is this energy when Democrats are in power? Because this will force them to have to come to the table with us now that they're in power.
Right.
But we don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Everyone forgets, gets complacent.
And that is why what Cory Booker did was so powerful, because he actually spoke for 25 hours about the issues. He didn't do that crap where you pick up a green eggs and ham book like Ted Cruz did and be like, my daughters love green eggs and ham. And my wife, who Trump called ugly and disgusting, she also sits in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Cory Booker for 25 hours talked to break the record that was held by this man, and I apologize for this picture, Strom Thurmond. I wanted to pick the worst because this is what racists look like when they live a full life. they look like straight up like the racism is just spewing from their pores, and it's just starting to dissolve them.
Yeah, it's eroding away.
Yeah, no, racism and hatred for others is a toxin.
And again,
this is what you look like.
To clarify, I wasn't brought up to make fun of. Actually, that's not true.
No.
I'm just thinking about.
We grew up Dominican. We're Dominican.
Right. I was gonna say my parents did. They used to make fun of everybody, but like it was interesting, right? It wasn't in like an intentionally malicious way.
Yeah.
And it was always hysterical, though, right? Because Dominicans just find the worst attribute. Anyways, but yes, to the lizard man.
Lizard man. Yes. That is Strom Thurmond. If you don't know, in 1950, well, I think it was 57. Yeah, I think it was 57. Mm-hmm. He spoke for 24 hours and something like 8 minutes on the Senate floor to filibuster the Civil Rights Act of 1957, and he failed because it was actually Eisenhower who wound up signing it just a few days later. Mm-hmm. But this record of talking on the Senate floor to stop Black people from being able to get the right to vote and being seen equal in the law was held by this segregationist for what, almost 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And that's why Cory Booker, a Black man, and by the way, I don't know if you know this, his parents actually had to run a sting operation in order for them to be able to buy a house in a white neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had to get a white person to go in there, I believe, buy the house, but it was really being bought by the parents.
Oh, like the white person was acting like an agent for them.
Yeah. And they weren't able to buy a house because they were Black. This is the time that his parents grew up in. A segregationist time.
Right.
Where it was
that was not that long ago.
No.
That's what people, again, I feel like that's everyone's excuse always, like whenever they want to be like, oh yeah, no, racism isn't an issue and all this stuff. Slavery was forever ago. And it's like, no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. And it was so much more than just slavery.
Yeah.
Like as if that wasn't fucking horrendous enough. Sorry.
No.
It wasn't like horrendous enough, right? Like it was the systemic issues and the systems that it created and that are still in play today that,
I'm hoping maybe one day we can look back on citizenship and see it the same way, that we were throwing people in jail based on citizenship. We were.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying the future.
No,
I'm saying in the future. Maybe like, 200 years, 300 years from now. I don't know. Maybe even longer because time moves really slow with these rich white folk in power. But that, maybe even, these borders would just seem archaic because they're creations of our own, isolationists and, European domination creating these borders,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm hoping like down the road, we can see that as archaic and be like, I can't believe we did so much based on who does not have citizenship.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're ways away from that, unfortunately, but yeah.
Let's see, 25 hours to break Strom Thurmond's record. And like I said, it was also very powerful. Real quick before we go into that, I just want to get, it's been said before, and I think I just want to state it for my own purposes, that this was powerful because Strom Thurmond spoke for 24 hours to try and keep white supremacy, in as the law of the land.
Status quo, yeah.
The status quo. He did not succeed. And when Donald Trump says, "Make America Great Again," he's, in my mind, talking at that moment was Strom Thurmond was still on the Senate floor fighting for white supremacy. That's the moment he wants to go back to. And it's very powerful that Cory Booker was then at a moment where Donald Trump is getting the power to take us back to that moment where Strom, I don't care to say his name right.
Yeah.
That racist was on stage. It's very powerful that a Black man was sort of, the standing there saying, "You shall not pass." Like this cannot happen. You will not take us back to a time where I had no rights, where people of color had no rights, where we were second-class citizens, if that,
Yeah.
So it was a very powerful statement for him to say, this record is being held by a segregationist, and I won't allow it anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And obviously the level of preparation that came behind that speech, I can only imagine. And, I mentioned to you earlier that I saw something online that said this was definitely a team effort, right? That was one man standing there representing well, not only members of Congress, but also just the ideally, hopefully, most of the American population at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had moments of breaks, fortunately, because different other representatives were asking questions intentionally to help kind of continue the conversation, but also to give a respite of just so he can breathe.
Yeah.
Because again, what people need to remember is that this man is for 25 hours did not leave the floor.
Did not.
Right? Did not sleep. That wasn't able to use the restroom.
That's what everybody was asking him, which is like, hey, did you use the bathroom? How were you not able to use the bathroom? What happened?
But we also asked the same. That was my first question. Oh my God, what was it? John Oliver? No, who was it? That
Seth Meyers.
Yeah. Was talking about like that everyone was asking the important questions and then segued into all the reporters asking about the restroom, the bathroom, when did he blah blah blah. Which, let's stop asking this man. That's his business.
This is the thing, like a lot of people might have less stuff, but like 25 hours.
That's crazy.
Standing, not using the bathroom.
Yeah.
The man stopped eating 3 days before and stopped drinking water 24 hours before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then to stand for 25 hours.
25 hours standing.
How are you? Oof, I hope he had
I gotta know when I'm at a Six Flags and I have to stand for the 45 minutes. Like,
right.
And there I'm on my phone.
Right. Exactly.
Not talking.
Right.
25 hours. I think I can do 25 hours talking.
You could. I mean, surprise.
But
anyways, yeah.
Let's see how he finished off, which I think was very powerful. Let's watch a little bit of how he finished this off.
Yeah.
I've tried over the last 25 hours and 1 minute to center the conversation back on what will we do of good conscience. And so I end by saying simply this: where I started was John Lewis. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to stop us from going down this road, but I know who does have the power: the people of the United States of America. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time to heed the words of the man I began this whole thing with, John Lewis. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. I want you to redeem the dream. Let's be bold in America, with a vision that inspires, with hope that starts with the people of the United States of America. That's how this country started. We, the people. This is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor.
That's
I cried about it earlier, so did you. So we got it out of our system.
We got the crying out of our system. I know. It's so, you cried. Yes, I cried.
Yeah.
I cried because it was a call to action.
That someone's finally standing up. Like, that's the other thing, right? That everyone's been asking. And that's what's so ridiculous with the comments online, right? Everyone's been asking for someone to stand up in Congress. Everyone's asking, like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Democrats, where are y'all at? I think partly they were preparing this, right? Because I think at some point or another, so many things had happened where someone realized, maybe it was Senator Booker, whoever it was just like, we can, like, this, you can write a whole speech on this. You can just summarize all the stuff that's happening to the American people on like a public platform like that. Like, this is the town square. This is the call to action to everybody. This is where, like, are y'all awake? Like, are we paying attention? Do we not see what's happening? Do we not see the attack on access to information? Do we not, whether it's through censoring online social media, whether it's through persecuting student activists or activists around, irrespective of what you're doing, whatever it is, right? Like, they're going after access to information. They're going after the pillars of government. They're going after our judicial system and our lawyers and our legal community. They're going after our most marginalized communities. They're going after, what are we not seeing? And he hasn't been in office for 100 years. I mean, 100 days yet. Sorry,
he felt like he's been in office.
That's what we call a Freudian slip.
But see, and this leads us into our next story, right? Because Trump is trying to take back the government.
Actually
70, 80 years.
Sorry, before we go into that next story, just because I wanted to talk about the 5 Calls app.
Okay.
Before we segue out, because a lot of people keep asking, all right, that speech is great and all. What does that do?
Yeah.
What does that do? Well, it does what I just said, right? It is a call to action. So if you're asking yourself, but I'm just one person, I don't have the ability to necessarily organize XYZ for whatever reason, fine. At bare minimum, you can call your representatives, right? And the question has been asked a million times. Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't even know the right thing to say.
Right.
So there's an app called the 5 Calls app.
I'm gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
Bring up this call.
And we're not sponsored by them, but hey, if you want to, you can, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. So it's a great way to reach your representative if you want to let them know which causes are important to you, get in their face. Let's try and move them. So this is called 5 Calls.
Yeah. So you can find your representative's information. They'll summarize right now what are some of the important topics that are going on right now, but you don't have to necessarily pick from this. It can literally, you're allowed to call your representative, right? Like, you voted them into office. This is their job. And yeah, so it's about calling them, having your voice heard. If you don't want to talk to anyone also, you can call and leave a voicemail. And that still counts, right? So you have to call, leave give your name, what county you live in, what city you live in, and essentially what your grievance is, and you can leave a voicemail. But the idea is saying, hey, what are you doing about this? Or hey, stop approving the people that this man is proposing to go into office. Hey, do something, right? And representatives have to listen to that, right? And it has to be accounted for, and it has to be, it's used for things like this.
Yeah.
For, Cory Booker used it in his speech.
You know what? You're saying that you want Cory Booker to do better, and all those concerns that you're sending to comments, in random videos, send it to the Congress people. Let them know, hey, listen, Cory, great what you did. Love the enthusiasm, but I would really appreciate it if you started moving away from APAC money. I would really appreciate it if you didn't vote for, candidates like, Marco Rubio and things like that have gone on to do a lot of the things that now you're fighting against, which is great, but don't do these things that put us in these positions, let them know.
Right.
Let them know your frustration, what you have against them.
Right. That's why we have the structure that we have. So I just wanted to share the 5 Calls app as a quick segue.
Yeah. And like we're saying, this is great that Cory Booker is bringing attention to what's happening inside of government. But remember, what's happening inside of the government is also inspiring a lot of people not in government.
Right.
Which is where there's a lot of rise in right-wing militia groups. And one of them that's currently, really growing in numbers is where we're at. There we go. There we are. This is a Patriot Front. This is a right-wing group out of Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and they're currently. This is Patriot Act was Simon Minaj's show. This is
and Patriot also there was the actual Patriot Act.
Yeah, it's also because of the Patriot Act. But Patriot Front is you may have known them for coming out of those U-Haul trucks. I think we have a picture of that in a second. But let's not bury the lead here. This organization is growing in size and in scale. Recently, this is it. You may know Patriot Front. They're the white supremacist group that rent U-Haul trucks, and they do these. They come out of these trucks trying to start unrest, trying to start fights, trying to start problems. This was at a Pride march, a Pride festival in Idaho. They were going there to instigate, and they were stopped, and 31 members were arrested. And I believe the leader of it was let go. I have that image in a second. But essentially, look, this is where these people have always been dangerous. They were going to Idaho to try and hurt people. They had tactical gear. They had pepper spray. They had
Jesus.
They had shields. These shields that you see in these images. These shields they use as weapon to hit people and push people.
Yeah, those look like metal shields. Yeah, that's definitely a weapon.
Yeah, they're actually
you could crack someone's head open with that.
They're being trained. These people are training each other in compounds, and this is the one that is very alarming. They are putting up. Well, they bought 122 acres of land, and they're currently building a training facility for more of its members. They are hosting in this facility other militia groups from Texas, While they're coming there, they're training, they're fighting, they're learning tactical gears, how to use those shields. And they are getting more and more organized and being emboldened by the fact that none of them are being held accountable. This is a guy named Thomas Rousseau. He's actually the founder of Patriot Front. He was one of the people that was there trying to instigate the riot at the Pride event in Idaho. And actually, they were not able to prosecute him. They dismissed the charges against him at this event. So this is another situation where you had these racists openly, organizing in the streets, trying to start a riot, having technical gear. They were taken in and they weren't charged. And now they've been emboldened with the president we have that they're building a compound to actually grow in numbers.
All I gotta say is let some Black, brown, Latin person lead that up and let it be a bunch of Black, brown, Latin bodies. And
I mean,
as if that would be allowed. What?
The Black Panthers.
Yeah, and we saw how that went for them.
The Patriot Front.
It's so crazy.
Patriot Front are marching down the street, right? They got tactical gear. They're wearing masks. They're trying to start riots.
They're trying to intimidate people.
Yeah. And not only were the charges against them dismissed, they are now growing in numbers and building a compound, 122-acre compound, where they're training people for, honestly, a civil war.
That's what it seems like.
And they're able to grow under this government.
Right.
But meanwhile, you had groups like the Black Panther who were trying to feed people, who were starting...
They're trying to educate people.
I think they were the ones that started the ambulance program. I think the idea of ambulances come from the Black Panther Party. And the U.S. government did everything possible to destroy this group that was trying to bring change to the Black community.
Yeah.
No, the first... no, so I was wrong about that.
Yeah, no, it's ambulances were first used for emergency transport in 1487 by the Spanish forces.
I don't think...
Are you saying in the U.S.?
I think the idea of ambulances were popularized, or at least community ambulances were popularized by Black groups. And because they were so popular... Wait, am I right about that?
Well, I found this. I don't know if we want to share screen, but I'll put this up.
Yeah, let's put it up. Let's see what we're talking about. That's it.
Yeah. So this team Rubicon, just to go back, who started the first ambulance service, the ambulance service that made the modern EMS, so what we consider, emergency medical service. Okay. Founded in a predominantly Black neighborhood and staffed entirely by Black paramedics, the Freedom House Ambulance Service set the standard for ambulance services and helped establish the training program and procedures for modern EMS systems. Is that what you're thinking? That's so cool.
Yeah. And this is, So, okay, so I apologize. It wasn't exactly the Black Panther, but Black communities were the ones that started the idea of ambulances inside communities. We need... like they do in hospitals, like they do in war. You need to get help there while you get somebody to the hospital. And these ideas were so popular in the Black community that the government was like, we're going to steal that idea because we don't like the fact that Black people are leading the charge in this fight to keep people healthy. Whenever there's Black groups that have done something good for the community or trying to empower the community, they are always have their ideas stolen or they're criminalized for it.
Right.
But again, Patriot Front is allowed to very much walk around and, operate and do what they call confrontational dynamics. That's what they call...
They create confrontational dynamics.
They don't even call what they do a riot. That's what's... Or hate crimes. They say, once an appropriate amount of time and confrontational dynamic has been established, the column will disengage and proceed east towards Sherman Ave. This is Patriot Front talking about their plans on what they were going to do in Idaho against the Pride March.
Them saying that they're just trying to create confrontational dynamics, or that's what they're doing, is being like acid just burns a little. It just burns a little bit. We're just trying to create like a little bit of confrontation, not a little bit of just a little bit of
Just a
confrontation.
little spice of life, just a little riot.
Yeah, like we're talking about like road rage. Technically, road rage is confrontation, right? You yell at a person because they cut you off.
That's a confrontational dynamic.
Yeah, that's a confrontational dynamic. That's what we're talking about. No,
Yeah.
you're walking around with like weapons.
Yeah.
Right? That giant piece of metal in your hands, that sharp edges that you can crack someone's head open is a weapon.
It's a weapon.
And you're out here chanting God knows what kind of hate speech. And like, come on.
You're able to walk on that. And again, going back to this one, I know when the Black Panthers were in California, their right is you can open carry. Guess why the laws changed in California? Because of Black Panther leaders, having their guns in public made white people very uncomfortable. So that's why the laws changed.
Yeah.
So it's always when, Black people especially, and then, Black or brown people try to defend themselves through the laws that are in place, they change the laws so we won't be able to, use them to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
But white dudes can march, storm the Capitol, or walk around Idaho wearing, ski masks and saying that it's all for the government, and they're all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the double standard doesn't properly encapsulate that, but that's the double standard that exists, unfortunately.
And talking about double standards, that's a perfect segue into, I think, our final story for today. See, this really, grinds my gears, doesn't even begin to describe it, because
you're a little old, but
I'm 37 today. Right? It's my birthday. I get to use words.
Grind my gears.
That was in my birthday box this morning. It's grind my gears and thermal.
You're cold now all the time.
Thermals. Yeah, a lot of antacid pills.
Oh yeah.
A lot of heartburn in the birthday box today. But so what's going on is that's just so Meta, Google. Let's bring up this article because this is beautiful.
This is beautiful.
That's beautiful. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are warning their Indian employees to not go back home because they may not be allowed back in the country.
Is it just Indian employees?
H-1B visas are, especially in the tech world, are a lot of them are taken by Indian tech.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, tech employees.
Oh, okay.
So a majority of them are from India. They aren't all from India, but there is a majority of them that come from India.
Got it.
So they're being told not to go home because they don't know if they're going to be allowed back in.
Yeah.
And this is the same people who were standing behind Trump at the inauguration. The CEOs of Amazon, Meta, Google are now telling their employees that they cannot leave this country because the guy they support, fund, gave to his inauguration, go hang out with, will not let them back in the country. How that's indentured servitude. That is a golden cage.
Right.
That is,
in order to live here and provide for your family and build the career that you've worked so hard to create and work up from, you can't leave here.
And they're saying, we need you. You're valuable, but we're not willing to do anything to actually protect you.
Right, as a person.
As a person.
To clarify, not as a worker or as an employee, as a person.
As a person.
Right, because there's also a lot of conversations as we've talked about legislation that's in play or being considered. And yeah, like let's just make it very clear that we're talking about giving people rights as people, not as employees.
And I heard this from a friend of mine, which just kind of encapsulated how a lot of just how a lot of people try to justify being with someone or working with someone that might have different political views than you. It's like, you cannot be with someone who says they love you,
right?
But then they want you destroyed systemically. That is not love.
Right.
You are their prisoner.
Right.
And they can hurt you anytime, any way they want.
Right.
And these are what these tech people are doing, that they're asking their employees to not go home, not see their families, going back home, they should be allowed to. There are people who are canceling their trips and just saying, I can't go home because I might not be able to come back to the job that's helping me provide for them.
Correct.
because I'm working for the same people who want to see me destroyed systemically.
Who only care about me to the extent that I can do work for them. And that's their bottom line. And you know what's crazy? I think that like in the US, we're so used to that mentality of like you're only valuable if you're based on your utility, like whether or not you can work, whether or not what you can provide and all that stuff. And it's just like, well, we've talked about this, right? What about the elderly?
Mhm.
What about kids? Right?
Yeah.
If that's the metric, then what are we doing with children?
Yeah.
Right? Like if that's how you're measuring humanity and who deserves rights, then there's a lot of people that we all care about that will be affected by that. And in the same way that you can understand that the people in your life that fit those categories of children or elderly or now somehow disabled or somehow affected with some affliction, you can understand that some people may not be able to work
Yeah.
and are still valuable to this world, just as a general concept.
Yeah. And you know what's a lot of people don't realize also with these, you know, people who come on H-1B visas, there's no pathway to a citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these statuses are just to work,
Right.
just to come to study. And you give this country, like we said before, a lot of your best years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unable to work, if you're unable to, you know, do the thing that you came to this country to do, they'll be like, well, tough luck. Time for you to go home. Get out of here. There's no decent way of transitioning people. Like, hey, thank you for all the things you've done, all the ways you sacrificed. No, they'll still keep you in that status, and once you're no longer valuable, they will throw you out. And seriously, again, this really pisses me off that these companies that are supporting Trump are begging their employees not to go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do fuck? Sorry, I know I'm looking for intelligent words to say and try to make a good case, but it just pisses me off the way these rich Republicans just want to. I always said that as an immigrant, I feel like a ping pong ball. You know what I mean? Where in my home country, they're just whacking at me.
Right.
And then I come here and they're whacking me back and and it's just like wherever we go, these people just feel like they can just terrorize us however they want.
Right. And not care about you as a person. And yeah, I mean, and that's why they're again going back to Cory Booker.
Yeah.
That's why
going back to where we started.
Something has to change. And that's why, again, irrespective of how you feel about the man on some of his views and all that, that's why what he did was so important, right? That someone's trying to stand up for all of us, right? Trying to stand up even for the people that may not think he's the best person, that may be thinking that criticizing him left and right, that's fine. You're allowed to.
Yeah.
And he's trying to fight for your right to do that.
Yes.
That's what you're failing to understand, that your right to do that is, in this day and age, a privilege. Our right to sit here and have this conversation is a privilege.
That very soon may not be.
Correct. So that's what we're all talking about at this point. So yes, we can go into the different, very valid, very important issues that, again, are important, but it's right now, guys, like, I don't know if we're living under a rock, if you're still out here trying to criticize. He's trying.
Yeah.
Right. And that's more we can say for a lot of other Democrats that are in office right now. And if you feel like your representative isn't trying, then you need to reach out.
And I think this may be the vital question for the week. What good trouble are you going to get into this week? What good trouble are you going to cause to let this administration know that you're not going to stand for it? I think a lot of people coming out of Wisconsin and voting against Elon Musk's back Republican Supreme Court choice is a form of good trouble.
Absolutely. Exercising your right to protest. Maybe on April 5th, if you look up what protests are happening and join them.
That's good trouble.
Correct.
If you continue to post good information and the right information about what's happening to immigrants and
that you
vetted, that's good trouble.
Correct.
If you're helping your neighbor, survive, give them water, give them shelter, you know what I mean? Like, help out your friends wherever you can. That's good trouble, because they want us to just be mean to each other and evil to each other.
They want us to feel isolated.
Exactly.
Right now. Yeah.
So we can all find ways of doing, getting to good trouble.
Yeah.
That helps out our community, our friends, our country.
Yeah. And again, Senator Booker did some amazing good trouble. And we can all take a page out of that book.
Yeah.
So.
I can't wait to get in some good trouble this week. Anything else you think we should tell the people before we go?
No, I mean, I think that on behalf of both of us, I'll apologize for your not ironed shirt that I didn't notice until. Nah, because man. You know what it is? There's times, There's times that you'll be watching videos and be like, so we're not going to talk about the elephant in your room, like the booger in your nose. You don't have a booger in your nose, but.
Yo, tell me how quick I look at the camera, because I can't look at the screen and my nose at the same time. So I'm like,
no, but just that, yeah, you can, ironed it a little bit.
I could have, but I also, if you're at home, you can't see this shirt. I love this shirt. It's actually a rose growing out of the concrete, and I love that image because I think of everything that's happening right now and how much. We're trying to be held down and our hearts be made of stone, right? I think the things that happened in Wisconsin and Cory Booker is a little spring of hope of realizing, oh, maybe hope isn't quite dead yet.
And it's almost spring.
I saw
that. I see
oh my
you.
Gosh.
Oh my God, you're a genius.
And if it wasn't wrinkled, the message would have gotten through. It's like that LL Cool J Unplugged where he did like a great performance, but all people saw was the little crack deodorant under his armpits. That people were like, yo, dude, you couldn't like just wear like clear deodorant. You have to wear the one with the chunks.
Oh, so you're saying I shouldn't have pointed out yours?
Yes, because now everybody is not going to say the message of the flower coming out and the change and the hope that's coming. All they're going to say is a wrinkly ass shirt.
But that's the vital question. Why is this shirt wrinkly?
Anyways, remember to subscribe, like, hit share, pass this along to your family, friends, grandmother if they want to hear some news
on all social media platforms. What's the handles?
At Che Guerrero, ENG for English, and at Che Guerrero ESP, which I promise you we're gonna start
building out a little more.
We're sorry about the Spanish content. There's just so much going on that it's hard to keep up, but we will not let that part slide too much longer. Guys, have a great week. We will try to have a great week.
Get in good trouble.
Take that little bit of hope. I know it's easy to be nihilistic and let go, but just try and find a little hope wherever you can. Even if it wasn't Cory Booker, find hope in something this week and keep that momentum going, because we could do a lot of change together.
We have
to. And also remember, it's my birthday. At Che Guerrero, Venmo or Cash App if you want to send me.
All right.
I do not want to go corporate.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. Adios.
Adios.